What's up, guys? This is Teddy. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This video, we're going to be talking about one of the most requested courses out of all time. Like, this is 100% the course that people ask for the most. So make sure to smash that like button. Make sure to smash that subscribe button and watch all my other courses because I love making videos, and it's even better when we're making what everybody else wants. It's not about me. It's about you. But identity framework is one of the most powerful frameworks in existence, I think. And it doesn't get, you never hear about a blogger or you never hear about somebody on Twitter going on about how powerful identity framework is. But identity framework is not only powerful enough for Bank of America, powerful enough for Wells Fargo, powerful enough for the biggest corporation on earth, but identity framework is the secret sauce to making social media apps. Like, I never hear it. It's so easy to make social media apps with identity framework. It's crazy. And not only on top of that, but identity framework, like, really, why even bother with it? Why don't you just, make, your own hashing algorithm and do all that? Because if it's already there for you and they're giving you all these nice little extension methods, that's the reason people use identity. And that's probably the number one, least talked about. Why do we even use identity? It's because it gives you all these juicy little extension methods that you can use. So you don't have to write it. You don't have to write any of the database calls to get users out of your database. You don't have to worry about hashing algorithms. You don't have to worry about OAuth. Identity takes care of pretty much all of that for you. And it's done so just through other people's code. You could definitely work for Microsoft, and I'm sure you could build your own, but why would you do that when you have 20 years of people developing towards identity framework and you have all these awesome tools? Not only that, but identity framework teaches you good database design. One of the reasons that your users have so much power in identity framework and you can create these badass social media apps is because it preaches. I don't know why I use that word. It preaches good database design. It wants you to have good database design, and identity framework is part of that reason. Number 3, it makes it so that, when somebody logs into Facebook, they shouldn't be able to edit your profile. You need certain security measures and you need certain authorizations so that you can have a functioning app and people can be rest assured that their data is being secured. Also, it's extensible in, I won't get on my soapbox about scaffolding. Scaffolding, you have to think, after you've been developing in identity for a little bit, there's a scaffold for everything. There's a scaffold for email confirmation. There's a scaffold for OAuth. And a lot of times, instead of going through all the pain of scaffolding or writing the code, just scaffold it and look for a scaffold online, and a lot of times you'll find one. So no identity course would be complete without knowing the difference between authentication and authorization. So let's just go here. Let's look at a real example of authentication. So when you want to authenticate, you are going to log in. Authentication is the door to the house. Whether you can actually go in the house is going to matter about authentication. So if you want to go into the house, if you want to log into the app, you have to authenticate. Okay, so let's just say you want to be able to edit a blog post. This account cannot edit a blog post because it can. This is the admin account. I'm sorry. So in any other account, you would not be able to edit this blog post, but because identity framework can differentiate between an administrator, and if you see it right here, I'm an administrator, and a new post, is because of identity. That is authorization. Authentication is you can log into the app, but authorization is this. So authorization would be, I click on this button and it's trying to get me to log in. It's saying, you are not authorized to send a message. You cannot send a message if you want to. You are not authorized to invite a user to run. You cannot do that because you are not authorized. You have not authenticated and you are not authorized. So very simple thing, but like I said, you can't really go into an identity course without knowing those two things. And we will just kind of leave it at that. And I went ahead here and I've created a brand. I'm assuming if you're watching an identity course, you already know how to create an MVC app. And I went through here and just created a regular old MVC app. And I did not add the actual users. Actually, let's go ahead here and I'm just going to go through the actual login process one more time, just because I don't want people to get confused. So we're going to go in here and we're going to go to create new project and we'll go to MVC app. We're going to go next and we'll just call this identity app course 2022, and that's identity, not identity. And we're going to place this in our source file, everything in the same directory. We'll configure it. We do not want authentication type individual accounts. If you choose individual accounts, it's going to scaffold, and we do not want to scaffold anything right now. So we're going to go ahead, click that create button. We're just going to fire this little sucker up and we'll see what it looks like if it will hurry up. Sometimes Visual Studio gets on my nerves the way it has errors, but try to be patient. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is we want to actually start installing our NuGet packages. And in order to do that, we go to right click, we go to manage NuGet packages. And like I said, a lot of this stuff, I'm assuming that you already know what you're doing because this is not a beginner level course. So if all of this is foreign to you, you may want to check out my beginner MVC course. So we want to install Entity Framework Core. We want to install Entity Framework Server. Go down in here. And while we're down here, we want to install Design. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to get Design as well too. And then we're going to type in Identity. So here, Identity Core. And ASP.NET Core Identity. And while we're here, let's also install this one. So .NET 6, there's a lot of stuff that comes with .NET 6 now. I'm assuming that you're on .NET 6, but I just install all of these just in case because I don't want people to get confused. So go ahead and create that. Next thing that we want to do is we want to create a database and we want to hook up a connection string to our app. So the way that you do that is you go up into your search bar, you type in SQL Server Object Explorer. We're going to go into our desktop here and we're just going to, I've already created this database here. I've been testing this and let me see here. I'm actually going to, I'm just going to go ahead and create a brand new one. So we're going to go identity course app, identity app course, since we're in, we'll just name it the course project. So we go in here and go down, wait for the spinner to stop spinning, and then go get your connection string in properties. So the way that I did that is I go to properties and I go into here and you can go ahead and get your connection string and you don't have to do all types of crazy, stuff to get that working. So next thing that we want to do is we want to go into our app settings JSON and we want to go ahead and here put that connection string in there. So let me see. Alrighty, so we're gonna go here. Got a loud host. Actually, I think I'm gonna put it up here. So we go connection strings, and there's IntelliSense for us because this is pretty common. So we'll go default connection and make sure double check that you make sure that you spelled that right. Otherwise, you will get all types of crazy errors that will drive you insane. So make sure you spelled this right. Make sure you spelled that right, or else you're gonna have a bad time. Okay. All right. So we've got our app settings, JSON. The next thing that we want to do is let's go in and go hook up our database to our program CS file, and we'll also go in here, and I'm going to put this above services. You can go to my GitHub if you want to. You can copy this down manually, but I'm going to have all of this in my GitHub, on my GitHub here in a second, so you can copy this if you want to. But if you want to get that repetition down, or you want to practice a little bit, feel free to type it out manually. So we don't have our application DB context in here because we have to add it. And there's a couple caveats that you kind of need to know about identity in order for your application DB context to go according to plan, because if you don't do a couple things right, it will show a bunch of errors, and it's kind of annoying. So just go into the data. We're going to go into our application DB context, and we're going to go type in identity DB context. And then we're going to go ahead and put in our identity user. So let's go ahead. Let's make sure that we can get both these in here, and I'm going to explain a little bit what's going on here. So if you just use regular DB context, you will not get, so if you've taken a beginner course, you will type in DB context without this, and that doesn't, if you want identity, you have to type in identity DB context in there just like that, or it's not going to work. So next is we're going to have our constructor, and we're going to have our DB context options. Just like this, DB context options, and we're going to pass in our application DB context. Don't get too bogged down about what a lot of this stuff is. This is just boilerplate. You really don't even need to know what's actually going on here. I'll kind of explain it a little bit. That should not be there. So essentially what's happening here is that it's passing these options up to the actual DB context, or the actual DB context options, or the identity. So what base means is that you're taking in these options and you're passing them up to this. And if you look here, DB context options, that's because, just think about it as this is shooting up into here and going into this constructor. You're basically, instead of inheritance being passed down, or the constructor being passed down, it's actually being passed up to the base class. That's what that base word is actually meaning. And that is pretty much it. We don't need anything more than that for now. And then we'll go here, go application DB context, and let's go ahead and start actually wiring up the identity. So whenever you install identity, you have to put stuff into your program CS files in order for these cool little extension methods to actually be able to be used. And the way that you do that is, let me see here. I'm going to copy and paste this and explain exactly what this means. So we go in here and we put in add entity framework stores and add default token providers. And I'm not exactly sure why they call this default token providers, but this is going to give you the operations for two-factor authentication. This is going to give you operations for reset password, and this is for cookies as well too. So it has a default token, but it's not actually, we're not actually using JWT in this. We're using cookies, and that will bring me to another part here. So when we are using Web API, we are going to use JWT token, but whenever you use MVC, you almost always use cookies. Cookies are built into static web pages, and I'll just show you an example. So this web page is MVC. this is not built in React. This is not built in Angular. And the way that authentication is used in MVC apps is through cookies. And the way that authentication is being done through Web API is going to be through JWT tokens. And JWT tokens, and you can actually see the cookie here. So let's see here. So we've got our cookie, and let me see here. So this is the cookie, and cookie is once again storing all types of data. This is how you do things like authentication. This is how you have like Stripe cookies. You have all of these things, and that's what cookies are there for. They're just little pieces of data that hold information. They hold claims, which I'll talk about here in a second, and that is going to be what's in charge. That's going to be what we are going to be using. We are going to be using cookies. So next thing is that we actually need to create our user model. So we're going to go in here. We're going to go into our class, and we're going to create an app user. Wait a second. No, don't want that. We're going to create a new model called app user. App user. Okay, so this is a very, very important point. So we're going to go here, and we can talk about roles here in a little bit. Let me see here. Roles, claims. So identity user and identity role. So remember when I was talking about how identity creates good database design? Well, this is exactly, and this is, like I said, pay very, very close attention to this. So with identity user, we're going to go in, we are going to create an identity user, and we're going to create an app user. Now, in theory, you could just go in here and create and just add identity user, and you probably don't even need an app user, but let's watch something happen. This is kind of a good important point, and this will tie into kind of everything, and this will help you have good knowledge of identity. So let's actually go in here and do our migration. So first thing that we need to do, .NET EF migrations. .NET init, and I think that is how you spell that. And if it's not, I'll have to go back and okay, good. Build started. Okay, we got a build failed error, and it might be because, let me see here. Microsoft Identity Framework, Identity Framework Core. Okay, so something broke here, and hopefully I can get it fixed. Let me see if it, okay, so it did. So it fired up, and I'm going to go in here and run the migration again. That could just be an error. Build succeeded, unrecognized command. Okay, so the build .NET EF migrations, we'll just call this first. .NET EF let me actually make sure that I'm spelling this. .NET EF migrations. Okay, add. I have to have add here. I'm sorry. So add init. So we go here, and we've got our migration. Now we need to do .NET EF database update. So then we're going to do our database update. Then we will go into here and watch what happens. So you would think that we don't have any models. Like if you look at this table, okay, so it's already seeded it. So before any of this actually happened, there was nothing in here. But if you look carefully, we don't have any models. So where are these? Like, if you would think, just looking at that database, that we would need these models. Like, why are these models showing up? And why do we have an ASP.NET user claims? Why do we have logins? You know, ASP.NET, like, how is that actually occurring? That's because you hooked up all of this into the program CS file. You added an app user, and now you have this. So now you have an app user, and the identity user is linked to the ASP.NET user. And the identity role, which is like the other cousin of identity user, is linked up to the roles table. And what makes this so powerful is that this is very, very, very important. So make sure that you're paying attention to this, is because if you right click right here and you go down in here, and then you right click here, you go to definition. Oh my gosh, what is all that? And then you go into here and you look into this folder right here. Oh my gosh, they're the same thing. Look, isn't that cool? So the user, normalized username, email, normalized email, email confirmed is all there, and it's all in those tables. And where it's coming from is that identity user. And we got that identity user in here. This is where this is being hooked up. This is where the entity framework store is being hooked up, and it's going to do all of that code for us. And it's all of these properties here are pretty much going to be in here, and it's being inherited down. It's being passed down from this parent. And that is how you get all those. But the great thing is that you can also just say, I'm trying to think. Let's just think of, we'll call this string and then a nickname for some reason. Like, why would you do that? I honestly have no idea, but it's just a joker value. It's a property I'm just going in there adding just to give you an example. Is you can also extend this. So even though you're getting all those properties in there, you can also get them, you can also add your own as well too. So if you wanted to add nickname to ASP.NET users, you can also add that as well. And that is pretty much the whole entire idea of identity. And I know that there's a lot more to actually think about, and there's a lot more to actually explain, but hopefully that just kind of gets you going and gets you kind of thinking about how a lot of this is actually going to work, because we're going to be building this out as we go along. But anyway, that's going to be the video for today. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. If you did, make sure to hit that like button, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and as always, thank you for watching.